All right, in this video, we're going to talk about inequalities in one triangle. And we are going to be comparing angles and sides in a triangle. So starting off with the first theorem, if one side of a triangle is longer than another side, then the angle opposite to the longer side is larger than the angle opposite to the shorter side. So here's what this means. Looking at BC here, BC is 5, okay? So this side, 5, is longer than this side, 3, right? 5 is bigger than 3. What this is saying is that the angle across from 5, so opposite to it, so if I look opposite, I'm looking at angle A. Angle A happens to be greater than angle C, right there, because angle C is across from a shorter side. So shorter side means that the opposite angle will be smaller. Longer side means the opposite angle will be larger, okay? So always look across, and that's going to be your corresponding angle, your corresponding side. So if you were to arrange these from smallest to biggest, you're going to compare the opposite sides to the opposite angles and go from there, okay? The next one kind of says the same thing, but opposite. So if one angle of a triangle is larger than another angle in that same triangle, then the side opposite to the larger angle is greater than the opposite side of the smaller angle. So here, because 60 is bigger than 40, right? We have 60 and 40. 60 is obviously bigger, so when I look across, that means this side, EF, is greater than the other side across from the 40, because 40 is smaller, which means the opposite side to that 40 is going to be smaller as well. Okay? And the last thing here is the exterior angle inequality. So the measure of an exterior angle of a triangle is greater than the measure of either of the two non-adjacent interior angles. So let's think about the exterior angle theorem, which we learned last semester, the exterior angle theorem, so that I could find the outside angle by adding up the two non-adjacent angles next to it. Okay, so obviously it makes sense that this bigger angle on the outside is going to be greater than just A, and it's also going to be greater than just B. Because how do we get the exterior angle? We get these by adding them together. So it would make sense that the outside measurement is going to be bigger than any of those individually. Okay? So here are some examples. This section is pretty straightforward. Okay, we're going to ask you to name or list the measurements of the sides and the angles from least to greatest. So starting with whatever's given to me, the angle is probably the easiest here. Least to greatest, that means that angle G is the smallest. Going up, 45 is the next biggest, so that's angle H. And lastly is angle J, because that's 100. Okay? So now what I'm going to do for the sides is I'm going to go in the same order. I'm going to look opposite to G. Opposite to G is this one. That's going to be the shortest side. So the shortest side is across my smallest angle. Shortest across from smallest. My middle angle, H, is here. So if I look across, this right here is my middle. So that's JG. And lastly, my biggest angle, J, so I'm going to clear this picture up a little bit. My biggest angle, J, that's 100, across from my longest side, HG. And a quick reminder here that if any of these are switched around, so like if you wrote GH, that's fine. If you wrote GJ, that's fine. If you wrote JH, that's fine. You can switch the order of those letters. It doesn't really matter. Okay? Now, for the second example, and if you want to pause now and try this and come back and check your answer, that would be awesome. This is a good time to pause. Okay, so hopefully you went ahead and tried this on your own. This time it's actually easier to arrange the sides because the sides are already labeled. So again, we're going from least to greatest. The smallest side is here. I'm going to call that QP. Going on to the next biggest, it's this one, 7, so that's PR. And lastly, we have this one, which is 8, so that's QR, okay? So now again, from least to greatest, I'm gonna look across. Because 5 is my shortest side, I'm gonna look across and say, oh, that means angle R is going to be the smallest. Next, because PR is the second one, this green one, I'm going to look across and say that means Q is the next one. And lastly, because QR is the longest side, I'm going to look directly across and say angle P is the biggest angle. Okay, so just the main thing with this lesson is knowing that the longer the side, the longer or the bigger the corresponding angle, the shorter the angle, for example, the shorter the corresponding side, and so on. So always look across at the corresponding angle and the corresponding sides with the section. And that is it for